Share prices of U.S. regional banks plunged despite reassurances from the Federal Reserve that the U.S. banking system is solid. And Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, and the United Nations will meet on Friday to discuss a deal that allows the exports of Ukrainian grains on the Black Sea. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Michelle Vandenberg. Chinese President Xi Jinping has stressed the importance of an accelerated construction of a modern industrial system to support the Chinese path to modernization with the high-quality development of its population. Xi made the remarks at the first meeting of the 20th Central Committee for Financial and Economic Affairs this afternoon. President Xi said the new Central Committee for Financial and Economic Affairs should continue to formulate major guidelines for economic work and strengthen the centralized and unified leadership of the CPC Central Committee on Economic Work. Noting that the modern industrial system is the material and technical foundation of a modernized country, President Xi stressed that the focus of economic development must be placed on the real economy to provide strong material support for achieving the second centenary goal. The 133rd China Import and Export Fair, also known as the Canton Fair, has concluded in the southern Chinese city of Guangzhou. Seen as one of the country's signature trade expos, this edition of the fair was the first since pandemic restrictions were lifted and in-person participation was reinstated. CGTN's Oman Khan looks at the event.
It's been 3 years since international buyers and domestic exhibitors were able to meet face-to-face at this very venue behind me here in Guangzhou. But persistence and patience have seemingly paid off, as this edition of the Canton Fair has been met with substantial praise from all parties involved. And it kicked off with resounding success, as the first phase saw several milestones and records set. A new hall was unveiled, and a record number of buyers from over 200 countries and regions participated in the opening stanza. Domestic exhibitors have hailed the return of face-to-face business and the opportunities the fair presents.
It's
the 51st time Guilans is attending the Canton Fair, with the first time being back in 1998. Back then, we had a tiny booth, 9 square meters, with only a few products. Aside from being a platform for global trade, manufacturing, and communication, this event allows for continuous upgrading and development. It has allowed us to go to overseas markets, such as Europe and the US. We are growing steadily in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Latin America.
With a focus on consumer goods, decorations, and toys, the second phase was the first time international exhibitors could showcase products at the Canton Fair. And after more than 1.2 million visitors attended the opening week, foreign vendors were keen to capture their share of the market.
It's fabulous. This is the first time that the Canton Fair authorities has, allowed the international exhibitors to come into Canton, which is the largest show for home decor, gift ware, every kind of merchandise. So it's a good opportunity for us. It's a learning thing. It's the first day and it has been busy. So it's good.
The second phase concluded with over $4.5 billion worth of export transactions. And it's those figures that provided momentum for exhibitors' high hopes as the Trade Expo wrapped up its final stretch.
We have, of course, high expectations. We hope that the clients come again as we did before. That everything is back to normal. So we are so excited to can offer, as always, good product and good quality. But now let's see, as it's the first day, we are expecting that people come and visit our booth, and let's see. But as always, we are so happy to come back here and hope that it's lasts for a lot of years.
Omar Khan, CGTN, at the Canton Fair in Guangzhou, Guangdong Province.
The Canton Fair has concluded today since it started off mid of last month. It's the first Canton Fair since COVID-19 restrictions were eased. Organizers say there were 2.8 million visits by people from 220 countries and regions. It covered 1.5 million square meters with a record 35,000 exhibitors. 9,000 of them taking part for the first time. There were 3 new sections this year: industrial automation and intelligent manufacturing, new energy and intelligent vehicles, and maternal and baby products. During the fair, Guangzhou Baiyun Airport handled over 440,000 passengers with over 3,600 incoming and outgoing flights. International arrivals reached 69,000, 88 times that of last year. The section for imported goods was expanded to 30,000 square meters. 3/4 of that was taken up by 370 exhibitors from countries and regions along the Belt and Road. The Canton Fair has always played an important role in promoting economic and trade exchanges between China and the rest of the world. We spoke to exhibitors from around the globe to learn more about their experiences and feelings attending this year's Import and Export Fair. Take a look.
The most impressed in Canton Fair was when before I came to Canton Fair, I thought it's like a normal fair. But then when I came here, man, it took me 1 hour just to walk from that side to this side. So it's very tiring and it's very big, a lot of halls and a lot of opportunities. I only went to 3 halls and I'm already tired. And there's, I think, 20 halls, I think. That is crazy and it's very, very nice. So Canton Fair, and plus the thing is the people here who is the buyer is capable of buying. They are not kidding. When they say they want to buy 1 million box, they will buy 1 million box. So it's really amazing for me.
I can say it's an international exhibition. Not only we received visitors not only from China, from all over the region. For instance, even we had some contacts from Australia and also from Philippines and Thailand and so on. So therefore, it's a good exhibition. It's one of the biggest exhibition area I have ever been. I'm in this business for 17 years. I've been in Europe and many different countries for the exhibitions. So I have good feelings. I hope you soon will see our products in your shelves in China.
We got a lot of potential customer because our business model we have a lot of business method model. So we got a lot of contact, but we need to do a lot of follow up. You say that what impressed me the most still the size of the fair, because in Malaysia we don't have this big size of fair. So it's a great experience for me personally and also for the company because we got the opportunity to join this fair. Yeah.
Honestly, I've met a lot of people from Arabian countries, African countries, and American, of course. They begin to know our Chiefet coffee, our product, and this is a great chance to meet everyone from the whole world.
This is like an international platform. So we are already exposed for limited customers. So right now we are exposed to internationally. So everyone is having this thing. They're coming, and moreover, right now the customers wanted a direct manufacturer. So no third party in between. So direct buyer and supplier. So they're coming direct. So it is very helpful for us.
As one of the largest trading provinces in China, more than 70% of Guangdong's cross-border e-commerce products are exported through the Pearl River Delta. At this year's Canton Fair, local cross-border e-commerce businesses were also invited to participate, becoming one of the highlights of the exhibition. Our reporter Olivia He has more.
In recent years, consumption preferences have shifted from offline to online channels, which is also reflected in this year's Canton Fair.
For example, well-known Chinese cross-border e-commerce enterprises such as JD.com, Vipshop, and Yugo are participating in the exhibition and becoming one of the highlights at the Canton Fair.
A few years ago, buyers of the Canton Fair mainly composed of large foreign importers. However, at this year's fair, I noticed that there are an increasing number of cross-border e-commerce sellers participating.
Yugo Cross-Border Company organized the official procurement team of Coupon and other well-known e-commerce platforms throughout the Canton Fair for different categories of large-scale procurement. The total purchase amount is estimated to reach 100 million RMB. Many foreign trade enterprises at the Canton Fair said in the face of efficient orders, they are actively expanding their channels, such as promoting domestic and emerging markets demand and embracing cross-border e-commerce.
A few years ago, we were a very traditional trade company. Our business relies on department stores from Europe and the US. However, in the last 2 years, the real economy suffered worldwide, and that's when we decided to work with cross-border e-commerce platforms.
Chen Jing said before the establishment of the company, she worked in several overseas shopping malls, accumulating more than 20 years of experience in transnational procurement and supply chain management. Therefore, in the early stage of business, Chen mainly cooperated with these shopping malls. However, digital transformation and expansion of online channels have enabled the company to further expand trading channels. At present, online sales of the company account for half of total sales.
In addition to traditional foreign trade enterprises breaking into cross-border e-commerce, many cross-border e-commerce platforms are also actively involving by transforming B2C supply chains and help online buyers cultivate offline channels. Olivia He, CGTN, Guangzhou City in Guangdong Province.
You're watching Global Business, still to come. The turmoil in the U.S. banking industry continues as the stock prices of several regional lenders plummet despite reassurances from America's central bank.
"360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
U.S. bank stocks suffered a brutal trading day on Thursday as the regional banking crisis in the U.S. intensified. One day after the U.S. Federal Reserve raised interest rates again, regional bank stocks tumbled. Shares of PacWest dropped over 50% as the bank said it was in talks with potential investors on so-called strategic options, including a sale. Meanwhile, stocks of large banks also traded lower across the board, including JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo. Investor fears of a banking crisis continued, with one CFRA research analyst saying fears has completely taken over and is made worse by emboldened short sellers. The recent U.S. banking turmoil has not only eroded the confidence of ordinary people in the country's financial system, but has also created uncertainty for the world's financial stability. According to findings released by polling agency Gallup on Thursday, nearly half of the adults surveyed in the U.S. said they were worried about the safety of their money in banks or other financial institutions. Of over 1,000 adults surveyed, 19% said they were very worried. 29% were moderately worried. Meanwhile, according to a series of polls conducted by CGTN, 73% of economists surveyed believe that the Fed's continuous rate hikes will worsen the global economic recession, and 88% believe that the U.S. has become the biggest threat to global financial stability. On Wednesday, the U.S. Federal Reserve hiked interest rates for the 10th time since March last year. Now, for more discussions on the spillover effects of the U.S. banking crisis, we're joined by Benjamin Chiao, professor at the Paris School of Technology and Business and the Southwestern University of Finance and Economics. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. So, U.S. banks are calling regulators to help stop what they call abusive trading, or as known as short selling. Why is there such a crisis of confidence?
People do short selling when they expect a fall in stock prices, and the falling expectation is not without support. The Ukraine war is still here with rising inflation, and shares of major U.S. regional banks fell further this week. The PacWest shares plunged about 50%. Shares of Western Alliance were also suspended. This is an escalating crisis that began with Silicon Valley Bank in March.
So what do you think U.S. regulators and lawmakers can do at this point?
Well, regulators usually do one of three things: allowing the consolidation of banks, or securing the deposit, or just letting the banks fail. So far, consolidation seems a clear direction at this time, since only the regional and smaller to medium-sized banks are in trouble. JP Morgan Chase was allowed to purchase the First Republic Bank, for example. And the consolidation also conforms with market behavior, because many banks increased their holdings of bonds during the pandemic when deposits were plentiful, but loan demand were very weak. As interest rates rose to curb inflation, the value of bonds held by banks dropped significantly. And the fear of insolvency induced depositors to withdraw money, especially for the Silicon Valley Bank. It has a very high percentage of uninsured deposits. So likewise, the other two banks that failed also lost 20% of their customer deposits.
And what is this crisis impact on European and global banking sector?
So far, it is not yet a rerun of the global financial crisis of 2008, but we still need to be very careful. With the exception of Switzerland's Credit Suisse, European banks for now have largely been intact. It is some specific US banks that are the problem. And as we said, the consolidation are happening, and depositors are moving to the larger banks. So primarily because there was not that much of a problem in Europe, because the European banks tend to be bigger and more tightly regulated. So far, most of the failing banks in the US were regional based and are vulnerable to rising borrowing costs as interest rates increased. But the bigger banks could fail too, as long as interest rates still need to be increased to curb inflation amid the Ukraine crisis and its effect on energy, food, and raw material prices. The European Central Bank has already made the largest interest rate rise since 2008. We all need to watch carefully if the central banks globally are running out of options.
All right, thank you so much for your insights, Benjamin, professor at the Paris School of Technology and Business and the Southwestern University of Finance and Economics. You're watching Global Business, still to come. Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, and the United Nations will meet on Friday to discuss a deal that allows the exports of Ukrainian grains to the Black Sea.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Technical personnel from Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, and the United Nations will meet on Friday to discuss a deal that allows the exports of Ukrainian grains on the Black Sea. The evacuation of Turkish-flagged ships and grain shipments from the Black Sea ports as part of the deal will be discussed. Ankara is working to extend the deal that will expire on May 18th. The United Nations and Turkey brokered what was described as a package deal in July last year, which was the safe resumption of Ukraine's Black Sea grain exports and a UN commitment to help Russia shipments of grain and fertilizer. But Russia says sanctions from the US and European countries have created impediment in payment, logistics, and insurance. Now we've got some breaking news coming in. U.S. Director General is now briefing the media following an emergency committee meeting. Let's take the signal.
However, that does not mean COVID-19 is over as a global health threat. Last week, COVID-19 claimed life every 3 minutes. And that's just the deaths we know about. As we speak, thousands of people around the world are fighting for their lives in intensive care units. And millions more continue to live with the debilitating effects of post-COVID-19 condition. This virus is here to stay. It's still killing, and it's still changing. The risk remains of new variants emerging that cause new surges in cases and deaths. The worst thing any country could do now is to use this news as a reason to let down its guard, to dismantle the systems it has built, or to send the message to its people that COVID-19 is nothing to worry about. What this news means is that it's time for countries to transition from emergency mode to managing COVID-19 alongside other infectious diseases. I emphasize that this is not a snap decision. It's a decision that has been considered carefully for some time, planned for, and made on the basis of a careful analysis of the data. If need be, I will not hesitate to convene another emergency committee should COVID-19 once again put our world in peril. While this emergency committee will now cease its work, it has sent a clear message that countries must not cease theirs. On the committee's advice, I have decided to use a provision in the international health regulations that has never been used before, to establish a review committee to develop long-term standing recommendations for countries on how to manage COVID-19 on an ongoing basis. In addition, WHO this week published the 4th edition of the Global Strategic Preparedness and Response Plan for COVID-19, which outlines critical actions for countries in 5 core areas: collaborative surveillance, community protection, safe and scalable care, access to countermeasures, and emergency coordination. For more than 3 years, the experts on the emergency committee have devoted their time, their experience, and their expertise, not just to advise me on whether COVID-19 continues to represent a global health emergency, but to also advise on recommendations for countries.
That was WHO Director General briefing the media following an emergency committee meeting. Now let's cross over to our correspondent in Moscow, Dasha Chernyshova, on the talks between Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, and the United Nations. So, Dasha, tell us more about the talks and Russia's concerns.
Well, indeed, we understand today is the day for the technical delegations to be laying the ground for the further meeting to be held next week by the delegations at a higher level, as we have heard from the United Nations. And today, the UN representatives are taking part in those talks in Turkey. But at the same time, Russia's position has not changed that much. Russia has been saying that there are concerns with regards to the implementation of the second part of this deal, which provides for the easing of the Russian agricultural goods to get to the international markets. Russia has been saying that there are several demands which Russia wants to be implemented, but the progress has been very slow. Now, when we look at those demands, you can see first and foremost the reconnection of Russia's Rossельхозbank, the bank which serves the agricultural producers and exporters, to the SWIFT system. That has not changed. Moscow has also been saying that there has to be the resumption of supplies of agricultural equipment to Russia, as well as spare parts and maintenance of that equipment. That has not changed either. Russia has also been calling for the lifting on the restrictions when it comes to the insurance and the possibility to enter all of the ports. And Russia has also been saying saying that there has to be the restoration of the work of the ammonia pipeline, which connects Taliati and Odessa. Another issue which Russia is calling for is unblocking the assets of the Russian companies in the West that have been one way or another connected to the production or the exportation and transportation of food and fertilizers. Without those demands being met, Russia says the outlook for the extension of this grain deal is very modest, and Russia has said before that the extension of the previous deal was made for the duration of only 60 days instead of 120 as provisioned before. Just for these reasons, Russia has hailed the efforts of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who, according to Moscow, has indeed been trying to make this progress possible, but said that there is the Western wall of misunderstanding, and the Russian position is that it is the Western countries that are unwilling to meet Russian demands. Without those, Russia says there will be no extension of this grain initiative.
All right, thank you so much for the update, Dasha Chanishova, for us in Moscow. Now to other business headlines we're tracking this hour. German industrial orders suffered their biggest fall in March since 2020, fueling fears that Europe's biggest economy is entering a sharp downturn. New orders, which give a foretaste of industrial output, suffered a surprise drop of 10.7% compared with the previous month. Retail sales in the Eurozone fell more than expected in March as rapid inflation and rising interest rates ate deep into disposable incomes to limit households' purchasing power. Food sales fell by 1.4% from the previous month, but car fuel sales jumped 1.6%, partially on lower retail prices. The UN Food Agency's Global Price Index rose in April for the first time in a year. The agency's chief economist says that as economies recover from significant slowdowns, demand will increase, exerting downward pressure on food prices. And that will do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michelle Vandenberg in Beijing. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
A Lao Wai Dean in the land of Confucius. Canadian Daniel Bell was educated in Canada and the UK before moving to Chinese mainland 20 years ago. After teaching for a few years, he went on to become